Hey, Bozidar. Thank you for joining me. We're live. So maybe we can just start out. Tell me a little bit about what you do. I have an idea, but maybe we can go to a little more depth.
Sure. My name is Bozidar Jovanovic. I run an investment advisory business called Honey Badger Advisors. So the business itself is not that old. It's about 2.5 years old, but this is my 25th year in the business.
Hmm.
So I have come to bring a lot of experience to my clients. And the essence of this is the personalized in financial advice for people who are busy, who need time to their businesses, to their careers, and need somebody to oversee their wealth creation. That's basically the essence. There are many layers to it, but the most important one is that we focus on providing this advice that's has our customers at its core, which is basically fiduciary advice. We do not have other distractions. We do not have other businesses, conflicts of interest. Selling other stuff, trying to securitize things, and having to sell whatever junk is in the inventory, like you have in big banks. For
Hmm.
us, the customer success is the most important thing.
Awesome. So let's just pretend I'm coming to you as a customer. I mean, how would you start? And is the approach the same for every person, or is it unique and tailored?
Well, this is so. Financial advisory is very personalized business. They're not two identical people, and if you really want to do it right, you need to hear what people have to say. What is the situation? Yours is not the same as the guy next door or women
Hmm.
next door. It doesn't really matter. People have different stages in life, different situations with their families, with their employment, with uh, desires of what they want to do, and you have to approach it that way. So the first thing is to assess where we are, and then make sure that they are on the right path. And I'll give you an example. I have a customer. A young woman, has a professional career and all that, and this year she said, "I'm starting my own business."
Hmm.
All right, so she basically branched out from her employment and started her own business. Same line of work, but starting her own business. Now the whole paradigm changes because there's no that steady paycheck. Now you have to figure out where is the cash flow coming from. So we had to rework the whole plan in order to make sure that this is a successful launch. That's an example of how this works.
Yeah. Okay, I think that makes sense. So maybe to frame it in a different way, like when people come to you and meet with you, what are the biggest mistakes you see in terms of if they're trying to invest on their own or manage their
Num-
finances?
Number one thing is we live in the era of information overload. So there is a lot of information out there. It's lots of that is confusing. A lot of it is junk, but you have a lot of information, and everybody thinks they can do it. It's not so simple. In other words, I'm of an older generation, and there's a band, I don't know if you remember, called AC/DC. They had a
Mm-hmm. Of
song called "It's a
course.
Long Way to the Top," and a line there it says, "I tell you, folks, it's harder than it looks." And it
Mm-hmm.
applies really well to this. Um, for example, there's lots of information out there that basically boils down to just buy cheap index funds, which that's okay. If you don't do anything other than that, that's better than doing nothing. But if you did that last year, you were down between 20 and 34%. That's what the market did. So S&P 500 was down about 19, Nasdaq was down 34%. So cheap index funds got you down exactly about that, plus a little bit more. Um, my clients were between plus 1.2 and minus 5%. So when you apply the research-based portfolio building and allocation, there are different results, and that's the idea. So this kind of techniques were usually available to institutional investors, the big pension funds and
Mm-hmm.
endowments and such, who have massive teams. But if you have experience, it is possible to actually produce the results like that, even with tools that we have at our disposal.
Are you able to go into more detail about what that strategy is specifically? Like, is it
I
hedging?
that's there is some hedging involved, but it is very much liquid. So there is nothing one of those fancy things that oh you're gonna lock your money for 10 years. None of that's the case. All of that was achieved very much with liquid in instruments, but it cannot be just going to indices. Can I go into many details? Not too much, because contrary to popular belief, this is an extremely well-regulated industry. What I
Hmm.
say and how I say it is very much regulated. So I have to put a caveat here. Everything I say should not be understood as an investment advice,
Hmm.
because investment advice
100%.
has to be rendered on a personal basis. If anybody wants to act on that, you need to consult a professional. Consult us or anybody else you feel comfortable with, but don't just go and ask for it. So I can give you just 10,000 feet over that things that you can use beyond stocks and bonds, which is commodities, liquid alternatives, that sort of stuff. When properly combined, you can have better results. And when I say properly combined, you have to look into portfolios and look into something called upside and downside capture. So let me explain that concept. So upside downside capture means how much of the upside or downside of the benchmark is a portfolio capture. Let's say your benchmark S&P 500. If it's down 1% and your portfolio is down 0.3%, the downside capture is 30%. Now you
Hmm.
look at that over many periods, because one period means nothing. Statistically, you get what is statistically in the average how much of the downside is captured. You do the same thing on the upside. So if you're able to reduce that downside capture, you will also reduce some of the upside. So if the market turns and the S&P is up 1%, you won't be up 1%. The skill is to make sure that the upside capture is larger or much larger than downside capture. That's where the hedging and other instruments put in. And you need to know exactly how these other strategies and instruments behave. So
Hmm.
let's say your downside capture is 50%, but upside capture is 70.
Hmm.
That difference, 50-70, makes over time makes a lot of difference. And this is how these things come about. The cone of return variability shrinks, and you have a much safer result. I'll give you another example. Let's say, so last year, market's down 20%. If your downside capture was 50, you were down 10.
Hmm.
Now, if the market's down 20%, you need a 25% up move to just break even.
Hmm.
But imagine, so if you're in cheap index funds and you're down 20%, by the time you break even, anybody who is down less at 0.5 is already way ahead,
Hmm.
because that 25% comes up from a lower downturn. That's the idea. And if you do that over time, this is how you get ahead. Consistency and sticking with a program.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, though, the upside isn't as strong if you're using that strategy. If you're just in index funds and it's going to swing down 20%, but then again, right, recently the market's been up, so it swings way back up. If you're using your strategy, is that swing not as high? Am I understanding
It's
that correctly?
because there is never a free lunch, right? The
Yeah.
protection on the downside also would skim something from the top on the upside. That's how it has to work. The way to do that is to make sure that that upside is larger than your downside. With the
Hmm.
index, you're always 1-to-1. Well, 1-to-1 minus a little cost, so there's some drag there, not much. With this one, we are trying to make sure that the upside is bigger than downside. It's just one of the ways to manage portfolios for the long term. I mean, as I said, making sure that you are that whatever you have is appropriate is the name of the game. Because say you are in your 20s, obviously you can take a lot of risk. You can take uh, be all equity. You can take some more risky strategies. But as you get towards 5 to 10 years of retirement, then there needs to be a paradigm shift. And this
Hmm.
is what a lot of people don't understand. Um, once you get towards retirement, you cannot be, oh well, I'm going to just bet on all equities and just go with full risk, because think about this. It's January 1st, 2008. You just retired. You're all equity. Beautiful. Everything is flying. In 6 months, market loses 35%. Now, if you're in 20s and you have a career and income's coming, you don't have to touch that. Okay, it's going to come back eventually. But if you are retired and that's your source of income, now you start drawing on a portfolio that's diminished. You see how that works. The portfolio that's diminished, you actually are kind of ruining your base. So the paradigm shift has to be, okay, now I accumulated this money. I need to start sequestering a piece of it to provide cash flow. Even though I'm not going to achieve the S&P 500 all equity index return, because the goal is different now.
Yep. Yeah.
That is something that needs to be understood. A lot of people don't do that, and they get caught, and then it's a problem, because the worst thing that can happen, you start drawing money out of your accounts when they're done.
Yeah. 100%. And the traditional way to do that, right, is to slowly transition more of your portfolio towards bonds. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. That depends on how things are. You may have other things. There are ways to do that. You can have a simple bond portfolio. You can have a bond ladder portfolio, which is very, very traditional way of doing it. Or that's also where annuities come in if you want to secure lifetime income. Really depends on personal situation and on the amount of money, because how much income you can generate really depends on the market and depends on how big portfolio is.
Okay. No, I think that's fair advice. And so I'm curious too, who you're working with. Who are your customers? Is it a specific person, or is it anybody that's looking for investment advice?
Well, there would be no there would be no business if it were one specific person. Yeah, I work with this one. This is his or her name. No.
Yeah.
Um, so specifically, Honey Badger is designed to pursue very traditional investment analysis, investment advice. We are adamantly opposed to the fads, the type of, for example, types of ESG. If I don't know if you heard or your listeners are hearing. So the ESG is the trend that emerged in the last 10 years, called environmental social governance. But it's a manipulative methodology that's trying to gain political gains from the companies. And it's basically distorting the market and distorting what companies do. It's, for example, forcing oil companies to not drill for oil, and things like that. But just to illustrate how basically manipulated this is, everybody's heard of Meta, right? Former Facebook.
Yep.
So Meta is a darling of ESG analysis, but Meta has two-tier stocks. There is a set of shares for Zuckerberg and the inner circle. They have super voting majority. They have basically a majority voting power, and then you have the shares that are sold to the public that don't have the same power. This is how he maintains the control of the company, even though he sold it to the public. Now, that's not considered good governance. However, Meta is a darling. And then you have also, for example, Tesla, which produces electric cars. So some can argue, yeah, there is some environmental whatever it is, but Tesla now found itself on the downgrade side of the ESG after Musk purchased Twitter. So basically, it's a meaningless label designed to extract political concessions from a company. So we are opposed to that, because this is not in the best interest of customers, and our goal is to be in the best interest of our clients. So fads like that do not enter our consideration. I mean, we are aware of it and we consider it as a risk, but we make sure that the positioning is in the best interest of our customers. So who would that be? People who agree with that kind of a message would be interested in that. people who are free thinkers, freedom loving patriots would be the customers.
Hmm.
Usually we target people who have between 400 and 2 million in AUM, but there are obviously other there is some leeway in there.
Hmm. Okay. Can you expand on what ESG is? I'm just
Sure.
now learning about that.
So ESG is, as I said, it's called environmental, social, and governance criteria. So it's the idea that sprang up like the last 1 or 2 decades, and supposedly it's there to measure the impact that companies have on environment, on social causes, and on governance of the companies. So
Hmm.
in general, on the surface, it's an interesting idea, but obviously, as always with this kind of goals, it's manipulative technique, manipulation of the language. So supposedly, companies that would be unabashed polluters would have a low environmental rating, um, or those who have bad governance, which is, for example, two-tiered shares, would get a low
Hmm.
governance rating. They have poison pills and things that prevent the company directors to be held accountable, would be low on governance ratings. But it doesn't happen that way. Social would be obviously looking at supporting different social causes, mostly leftist social causes. So the problem with that is, of course, you have the big funds of this world, like BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. They own almost 2/3 of the market. Specifically, BlackRock that has been writing letters to the company's CEO, trying to force them to that,
Hmm.
to follow these prescriptions. But the problem is this: um, if you didn't purchase the shares of the company, means you're not a shareholder of the company. You have no say. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
you don't have a say. There is no stakeholder capitalism. That arose as well in the last few decades, but that's basically wrong. If you didn't buy it, you don't own it, you don't have a say. Now, yes, we should have a say in things like, polluters and such, and for that we have laws and we have courts and all those things, because we
Hmm.
should not allow anybody to just brazenly destroy things around us. But it hasn't been for that. It hasn't been used for that, and so there are ways to go about it. There are ways to go about it, and the issue is that you know uh, pushing companies to do these kind of things is not in the best interest of the shareholders.
Hmm.
And for example, if you and not just that, it's not in the best interest of the country. Making oil companies not extract oil in the U.S. Make, makes what happens. Our oil, our cost of fuel goes up. The cheap and abundant energy is not available, and then people complain. Well, the price of food is up 40%. Yeah, what did you think is going to happen?
Hmm.
Because we have farms, and farms have all these um, farms have all this equipment. Where does
Machinery,
it go? Yes, and that machinery takes what? Hot
oil,
air? No. Oil, yes, that's the point.
gas.
So, and I'm always baffled by people who are started screeching about it. You like this thing? You want this thing?
Hmm.
What do you think
Hmm.
is made from?
Oil. Or it's shipped to
Yeah.
us with oil.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's huge part of the entire of the entire life. So not to say that we should just be careless. That's not the
Hmm.
case, and nobody's advocating for that. But forcing people to do non economical things is not the way of the future. We have
Yeah.
we come a long way. If you think about how it was in 19th century, how many people died before even reaching maturity, and where we are today, it's all because of the cheap and abundant energy. We cannot just say, okay, well, let's go to back to the caves. Maybe some people would
Hmm.
like that, but I don't think so. So what happens with that? Um, there is a big backlash coming on, and we are part of that. So we are managing money. we are avoiding those managers that provide that forcing people to do this irrational things. And then we make sure that the shares, when they're voted in a manner that it's in best interest of the clients. That's it.
Hmm.
Simple as that.
No, it's a good strategy. And then maybe just to kind of close out on ESG, if I'm understanding correctly, so is it like an independent body that is giving
Uh,
a company a score? Or
that's a good point. It's kind of a movement, and then you have
okay,
all these different organizations. So you had different organizations that provide the ESG score. There's no standard.
okay,
And so a lot of banks, a lot of different funds, they're kind of giving their own criteria. So this came up to the saying, oh well, it's greenwashing. We're just pretending that it's, and I'm against that as well. You should basically say what you're doing and stand
hmm,
behind it. If you
hmm,
want to have this so-called green stuff, well, defend it and defend your underperformance as well to the clients. That's fine. It's fine with me as well.
hmm,
Uh, there is always a simple understanding. If you have, this is the pie of all the possible investments. If you exclude a wedge of it, you're going to underperform because you're
yeah,
missing that part.
hmm,
And it has been like that. It's the only time when it outperforms is when the oils and the energy companies are down. So
hmm, hmm,
pretty much shows you what it is. So um, as I said, we are committed to making sure that the outcomes, the best possible outcomes for our customers, and that they are not being sold nonsense for huge amounts of money.
yeah. And I think maybe my next question kind of is in the same vein. And
Hmm.
correct me if you feel differently, but a lot of the reason that the stock market continues to increase in value is our ability to innovate, um, or just generally the economy to innovate. So as you look to the future, what's your stance on, will we continue to innovate? Will we continue to see growth specifically in the United States and then maybe also globally? What's your opinion on that?
Well, we have to. Yes, the history of mankind is the history of innovation. The
Hmm.
civilizations that thrived were the ones to innovate, to produce new stuff. So technology is the engine of growth. There's no question about it. I mean, it started agriculture, transportation, all these things, industrialization. All of that was coming to new technological innovation. And this is how we're going to handle everything else. We're going to handle energy in the same way. Now, here's the issue. The governments around the world can do a lot to uh, stimulate or impede the progress.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Usually, you can see my shirt. I am John Galt. That's the attitude. If you have in that book by Ayn Rand, the Atlas Shrugged, in one point they were asking John Galt, so what should we do in order to repair the state of the economy that we are finding ourselves in? And the answer is just stay the hell out of the way.
Hmm.
That's the way to if we put so many regulatory burdens on people, there would be no innovation. It is easy to stifle it. Just look at what happened to Eastern Europe in socialism. This is
Yeah.
the poster boy of managed economy. Nothing was innovated. There was a huge bump after the finish of the Second World War, because there was of reconstruction, and after that it reached a plateau and stayed there.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So are we going to continue to innovate? Yes, we are. um, I can see a lot of good things and progress for US, because our system is conductive to innovation, to people taking risks, at least for now. Hopefully we don't make mistakes and make it look like Europe. I don't see that much hope in Europe, though. I think that they have created a massive bureaucratic superstructure that stifles everything.
Hmm.
um, and that with all that, they're just slowly walking into irrelevance,
Hmm.
because the major link now is US Asia, and
Hmm.
that's going to be also a rivalry, because you have US and you have China. That's pretty much like two blocks. The other engine I'm seeing also would be what's called nearshoring, or even better said, friendshoring. So a lot of these offshore businesses that went to China are now coming back, scrambling back. They're not coming back to US because of the cost structure, but they're going to Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
And that is good, because raising the standards of living in Latin American countries, that provides markets for what we produce. It also stems the massive impetus to come to US.
Mm-hmm.
So if people have, prospects at home, many like I said, less would be, you know compelled to just to take the just journey on foot 1,000 miles just to come to US. So there is a lot of that's going on there. Watch, participate by investment, stimulate if possible, and profit from the for people who are patient.
Yeah, and I think to that point, when you're looking at investing
Mhm.
strategies or researching, how much is it still focused on U.S. only versus international? Is it still
Well,
mainly U.S.?
well, so if you invest in the last 10 years, US have trounced everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar. It's just been an enormous engine of success. Um, and given that historically how we handle these things, hopefully we're going to stay on the same path. Hopefully we'll allow innovation, we'll allow the growth, and the economy will grow. That doesn't mean that there are not opportunities out there. There
Mm-hmm.
are opportunities to be pursued in different places, but they have to be done carefully. There would be. I am skeptical about Europe, as I said, least of which is because there's a war on the periphery there, but mostly because of as I said, that bureaucratic superstructure where people value the good life and being in mediocrity. That's basically what's valued in Europe. Enjoy your
Mm-hmm.
life. Don't 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 get out of the mean, and be happy. Have 6 years, 6 weeks of vacation and such.
Yep.
We don't think that way. Um, but there are places. There's Asia. Japan has now finally recovered. There are also emerging markets,
Mm-hmm.
and so especially in our neighborhood, which is South America, but also in other places. So one thing that one needs to be very very careful about would be China. A lot of people made money in China, but you need to be careful about going forward because of this bifurcation that's happening in the world. The fact is, you go there, you really do not own their shares. They
Mm-hmm.
will do not allow foreign capital to directly own shares. And I've listened to many presentations of people who say, "Oh yeah, we have people on the ground, we know what's going on." I'm like, you have no idea. You have to understand that China is still a communist dictatorship, and anything you buy there can be taken away with the strike of a pen. So when we do invest, we basically avoid investing in China.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. The threat is
If
too big,
if
right?
you are a Western based investor, it is too great of a risk.
Well, and then can you kind of speak to, because I think, for example, right, I believe it's ByteDance and TikTok
Hmm.
is it's Chinese origins but based in the US. Is that a fair statement?
Well, it is Chinese origin, it's Chinese based, and they're trying to avoid the backlash. They are trying to avoid the backlash. The thing is, um, do I think that they should be banned? I have no problem with that. In all honesty, uh, what is the purpose? The fact is, there are actually two different systems in TikTok. In China itself, the videos aimed at preteens and teenagers are showing, you know, kids doing science competitions and achieving this and building this and that.
Hmm.
Um, Over here, uh, the algorithm is showing all kinds of depravity and immorality and all sorts of behavior that's really detrimental to society. So I wouldn't have no problem completely banning access to it for anybody who is like less than 25 years old or something, because it's really detrimental to society. And it does fuel narcissism, which also is not a good idea. I personally don't see any benefit. We don't have, as a company or as me personally, we don't have TikTok. We're not using it for anything, and don't plan to be part of it anyways.
So I guess just to push on that a little bit, I mean, if you say ban TikTok, I mean, where does that end, right? Does that then extend to other
That's a
social
problem.
media apps? I mean, yeah, I guess that's just kind of the counterpoint of, you
That
know,
is actually a good question. So, should we do that? Um, Maybe not. Maybe it is the age restriction, because it really needs to be assessed really carefully. Is like, what is the effect of it? What are 13-year-olds doing that? Why would be
hmm
13 and 15 posting images of themselves dancing out there, not
hmm
understanding that there are really weird and dangerous people watching that?
hmm yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest thing is trafficking children, which is something that we should definitely pay attention to, and it starts with social media. So that's but the most important part for people to understand is you put your stuff out there, the companies have your data.
hmm
I would say, uh, surprisingly, on Netflix there was a movie a little while ago. It's called The Social Dilemma,
Yep.
and I watched it, and it was very interesting. It had some of the founders, including the person who monetized, I think, Facebook, and
hmm
his take on it is like, no, my children will not have access to that.
hmm
So there is a lot of issues with the TikTok and the way that algorithm works and what is showing to our kids. So uh, how do we tackle that is an issue. And I understand, you know, your point is very well taken. If we start banning one, where do we stop,
hmm Yeah.
right? I do understand, for example, state officials and the military banning it because the servers exist in China, and it's easy for, if you browse on few things, they can build a profile on you.
hmm
So you can see that as a security risk if a hostile power has a profile on leaders of a country and leaders of the military.
hmm Yeah.
You know, you look at the stuff they build. The entire social media, ecosystem is built on the fact that looking into different things that you do, they can build up a psychological profile on you and then cater to you, give you
hmm
exactly stuff that you're looking. You notice that if you look and browse on things and start clicking on stuff, very soon you start
Oh yeah.
seeing in all the things that somehow did they know.
Immediately almost now these days.
Almost
Yeah.
immediately. Now think about in the hands of hostile power.
hmm
You have a
Yeah.
profile on leaders, members of Congress, local leaders, military commanders. So if you have a psychological profile, you can say, this person fits into this category. Here are the weaknesses. This is how we're going to attack them. There is a serious risk there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's a good
and
point.
and there is a joke I heard. It says, I came home yesterday. I told the joke to my wife. I laughed. My wife laughed. Alexa laughed.
hmm Yeah.
So,
100%.
so, so that's basically where it comes from. So yeah, it may not be banning it like outright like that, but I would say if you're a parent, you better be very careful what your children are watching and doing, and it's much better if they don't have access to TikTok.
Yeah. I think that's a good solution, right? Or the responsibility is with the parent, um,
Well,
which,
that's the thing.
yeah, yeah, which is hard to
That's the
do.
thing.
I mean, yeah, hey, I agree. It's a crazy time, and it seems to be very entrenched in our society here. So it's just, especially for
There's
young
a peer
people.
pressure. There's the peer pressure. It's always, I have 6 kids. So there's always, how can Susie have it and I don't have it? Why can Jane stay until midnight and I have to be home at 10? But that's not something that's new. I think it's been around for a long while. So you just have to,
Yeah.
have to step up to the plate and do things.
Yeah, I think so, 100%. And maybe we can transition to, because this is another thing that is certainly a hot topic. So I'm curious of your opinion on it, maybe from an investing standpoint and its
Mhm.
effects too, maybe on your industry and the economy in general, is just AI. Because AI is just,
Yeah.
you hear about it everywhere. And maybe sometimes it's a buzzword, but I mean, I certainly think it's here to stay. And I think we're just in the beginnings. So what are your
Well,
thoughts?
yes, it's here to stay. I can tell you something. And I'm going to date myself. Back in the 80s, I used to program some classification algorithms, which is the granddaddy of the AI. So it's not like I'm completely oblivious to it. Yes, every technology, every innovation is going to make it's going to make a difference. Do I think there is lots of hype in it? Now, if you remember the dot com craze in the early 2000s, um, you remember that? There
Yeah.
was that every company would slap a .com to its name, and suddenly its valuation goes up.
Hmm.
So yes, we are in the midst of a mania on anything that's AI. So I'm getting solicitations for different kinds of services every single day, and people say start
Yeah.
including AI in everything. Like that when I want to know what they're talking about, I said, okay, explain this to me. And it's well, yeah, okay, so you have no idea what you're talking about. Uh, so yeah, is it new stuff? Yes, it's going to be innovative. Is it going to change? Is it one of those robots are coming for our lives and going to replace us all? I don't know if that's going to be the case. We had computers come in and eliminate all sorts of work, but then there's so many other jobs that got created because of that.
Yeah.
We shall see how it develops. Uh, are we going to create a Skynet? Hey, that may be that may be a problem. Do we create fully autonomous weapons that then start doing stuff? Um, that's an issue. And I think you may have seen. I don't know if your viewers have seen. There was an experiment done where an autonomous drone was supervised by someone and had a task and to eliminate a particular target, and the operator was repeatedly stopping it from conducting a task, and finally the AI figured out and turned around and turned on the operator. It wasn't armed with the live stuff, but they were trying to figure out if that's going to happen. So what they did is they gave it a task with AI
Hmm.
and had a supervising operator who was basically say no, 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 no. So the AI figured out, okay, I gotta eliminate the operator to complete the task.
Yeah. I mean, it's logical, right?
It's logical, but that gives you the morality and ethics that are necessary, which the machine doesn't have. So that is a hurdle. That's something that we need to do. The other part is the chat GPT craze and how it supplants the learning. That's a bigger problem because apparently you can just type in stuff and get fully written papers
Hmm.
uh, that with zero effort. Now, the thing is, it's mostly regurgitating of the accumulated knowledge, but for very crafty yet lazy students, this could be a boon because they can just come up with a great paper without learning anything. But the issue is, of course, you schooling is more than just getting a good grade. It's actually trying to improve yourself and expand your mind. So if we let that run rampant, we may just undercut learning completely and create a generation of drones who are completely just absorbed into a phone and not and oblivious to everything else around. Uh, like
Hmm.
any emerging technology, that has to be balanced. I don't have a direct answer, but we'll see how it goes.
So are you looking at it in terms of investment, research, or strategy?
Yeah, 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 yeah. We so with Honey Badger, there's one thing that we use, and I must say, it's more of a Warren Buffett approach. In the midst of a gold rush, I will be selling you shovels.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that is how we approach this. Uh, Not necessarily going for every small company that may be producing this and that, but providing tools. And in this case, tools would be things like NVIDIA, AMD, Intel, and this kind of people provide tools, the chips, the memories, that stuff that is the building blocks for AI.
Hmm. That's
Because the
smart.
demand, yeah, that's the way it works. And you may not experience 120% growth or something like that. You're also not going to experience 100% loss.
Hmm. Yeah.
But the demand for, and speaking of NVIDIA, and again, for everybody who's listening, consult with a financial professional before you do anything. Last year, I called it out, and it was about 170. I told my clients we should get into this. Some did, and tripled their money.
Hmm.
Now it's kind of getting, a little bit ahead of itself. So there are different strategies to be applied, but that is one of the ways to do this. I would say, in my mind, this is the best way. Sell shovels during the gold rush. Provide the tools, provide all the infrastructure that's there, because that's where the investment come in. You need to build that infrastructure in order to provide results. And for the results, we don't even know which one is going to be successful
Hmm.
and what is the exact shape of the future. But we do know that the infrastructure is going to be needed there. So
Yeah, I think you make a good point. You talked about the dot-com bubble earlier and how everyone's just saying AI this, AI that. And so it's like, how do you pick
Mhm.
that the one that is truly going to influence the future, right? So
you need
yeah.
to you need to read, you need to understand really carefully, and you need to spend time learning about this. And this is again where the idea of having a financial professional help you is important. um, let's say you my favorite thing is that I go to parties where there are doctors around, and the
Hmm.
moment people realize what I'm doing for a living, it comes up like this: oh wow, I have this great stock and I'm trading it. I made 50% in the last 3 months. And I said, that's great. While you're trading stocks, who's watching your patients? And the answer is, well, I do that during my lunch break and during my coffee break. And I said, so you think you can do this consistently and successfully, where on the other end you have people like me who do this 10 hours a day every single day?
Hmm. Hmm.
Can you do it that way? And as a friend of mine who is a doctor said, yeah, you can't do this from the OR, operating room. And that's the reality. It's harder than it looks.
Yeah. And I think it's a good point too, right? If you're a doctor, whoever you are, I think your focus should be on increasing your active income. So you either have more money to invest in, whether it's with a professional like you or through other means. But if you're a doctor, you're not a trader, right?
Investing and trading are two different things.
Hmm.
If you
Hmm.
are a trader, you really need to be a trader, and that's your life. That you have to devote your life to that. If you are a professional, if you have other career, you invest. It doesn't mean don't buy any individual stocks. Yes, you can get something, but you cannot be trading.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
cannot be doing. You don't do that from the OR. You can have somebody do that for you if need be, and somebody you trust. Usually there are two types of these relationships. There are people who say, I don't care, I don't want to be
Hmm.
involved. You do the best you can for me and just tell me how it's going. That's fine. Those are people who really don't want to do anything. They want fully to be divested from the decision making. And then there are others who are professionals who say, I'm interested, I care about this, I really want to know what you're thinking. So it's a slightly different paradigm there, where you do the investment, but we check with the customer, we check with the doctor or lawyer, whoever it is, check with them and say, okay, here is the thinking, this is what we need to do, what's your thought, and here are the reasons why. So it's kind of digested the whole thinking that we have, and
Hmm.
then let them, because people are not stupid, they're smart, they can understand what these ideas are. But it takes time to process the information, it's time to do the research. And if you have a successful, or if you have a demanding career, if you run your own business, when
Hmm. Yeah.
when Running the
Yeah.
business itself is already taking majority of your day, and sometimes even nights and weekends and who knows what.
Yeah.
Now you got to devote time to do this as well.
Yeah. Not to mention a family or social obligations, everything else, life.
It takes time. I tell you, folks, it's harder than it looks.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That's
And then, so maybe if you're cool with it, we can transition because I kind of want to talk about you and what it
Mm.
takes. Maybe you can give some advice. What does it take for a young person listening to this if they want to become a financial advisor or follow a similar career path as you?
Okay. So I am not a typical financial advisor. That's the one I'm wanting. A lot of people
Okay.
in this business come through the sales channel. So the regular channel is you going to a big bank, you go to an insurance company, they train you in sales
Mm-hmm.
and you learn to sell. This is the main distinction. You learn to sell, 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 whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Shoes, mutual funds, cars, no problem. Um, and this is the main distinction between somebody who is independent like me and a big bank or a big insurance company or something like that. So a lot of people come to that. And this is also the advantage they have because let's make sure for everybody to understand sales is the essential part of the business. You
Mm-hmm.
can have the best product around if you don't have sales, if you don't have marketing savvy, you don't have a business. So it's
Yep.
important to know. But coming straight from the sales side and just basically selling without knowing what you're doing is detrimental. So getting mentorship, you can start with that, but it's very good to transition into an independent company where you actually can learn the ropes and learn the business and grow from there. Because and this is now a trend in big organizations, they segment everything and silo it. So you have the frontline sales, they call advisors, whose only job is to go out there, get people reeled in and bring on the money.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go into their central organizations. When people like me, I came through that other side for portfolio management, who would put the portfolios together, manage it for them, and tell them to how to approach it. You know, used to be that people come to me for as advisors in the bank, because I used to work in a bank, and they would come with, oh, here is the situation, what do we do? And I come up with a solution and they go back. So there's that lag of a couple of days between customer's question and coming back with an answer. So I think that absolutely sales are important, but if you want to be a real independent fiduciary advisor, you need to know from A to Z everything else. I had to
Mm-hmm.
learn the sales part and marketing part, because I am after all, I'm a quant. I'm a physics PhD who transitioned to finance over 25 years ago. So um, I am a numbers guy.
Mm-hmm.
Sales doesn't come naturally. The schmoozing doesn't come naturally to me.
Yeah.
uh,
Mm.
and talking to people. I like to express one, two, three. These are the facts. These are the things. This is how I see that, as you have seen in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not that great in storytelling and relating to whatever other things happen. This is just not my set of skills. So
Yeah.
that's why I do a lot of I'm looking to cooperate with people who can do that, so I kind of bring both sides of it to the business. But any business you try to start, any business out there, you have to make sure that you have a good sales channel and that you know exactly what are you bringing to the market and how you're going to do it. Because if people don't know about you, you can have the best product in the world, you don't have a business.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, sales is what drives growth. So, um, can you maybe talk about why you made that transition and maybe go into your past career prior to Honey Badger? It sounds like you before
Sure.
you used to work
The
for the
transition
big
from
bank.
from science. Yeah, I
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
work
yeah.
for different big banks. Yeah. Why did I do that? Well, so as I was getting my PhD, and this is not that unusual. A lot of people in higher sciences went into finance. Um, you were looking at a very interesting paradigm, and I would say physicists are known to be some of the most arrogant people around, right? Because it takes a lot of brains to do that sort of stuff. But
Hmm.
with all the brains, people haven't figured out, okay, what are all these people going to do? Let's think about it. Every successful physics professor would produce between 5 and 20 PhDs in their career.
Hmm.
Takes, between 6 years and a decade to get one out. So from 1 to, let's say, 10, that's an exponential growth.
Hmm.
Where are all these people going to find jobs? So in math and in engineering, there's a good, clear pipeline. There's some people going to academia, others going to industry, no problem. But in physics, we haven't figured that out. So by the time I was graduating, which was 98, you were looking at about 10 years of postdocing, which is you get this semi-student job where you do a research for somebody for a couple of years, and then you have to look for another one every 2-3 years, and you need to get at least 3 of those for anybody to even consider you remotely for a career in science. And then it was also a time that where the Eastern Bloc fell, right? So
Hmm.
you had a situation that an opening for some small who knows where college, there are 100 applicants, and the
Hmm.
job goes to somebody who was member of the Russian Academy of Sciences for 14 years, so like a
Hmm.
very senior. And I realized, okay, so look, I spent 22 years in school. I'm not going to be like having no job now. So
Yeah.
I looked at the finance. I saw a couple of things. Say, oh, look at this stuff. I understand this because there's quantitative finance. They're using similar processes and equations. So I transitioned, and I never looked back. So I first started at Bloomberg, which is the data provider and also calculator provider. I was doing some derivatives calculations there. And then I transitioned to hedge funds and some long only funds. And finally, my culmination of my corporate career was to be a chief portfolio strategist of a private bank.
Hmm.
So that's the person that all the advisors go to for the advice on how to handle stuff and
Hmm.
managing their portfolios. And then I basically I can do this better on my own.
Hmm.
Hasn't been easy because of that the fact that I'm not that good in sales, but we have
Are
a great
you
product. So
are you a one man shop or do you have a team behind you at Honey
right now it's a one-man shop. There is somebody who is coming on board, my former junior analyst from that position. He's transitioning as well, so but it takes some time to go through to the registration and all that stuff. So hopefully in a month there'll be another person, but for now it's just me.
Okay. No, interesting. And then, so do you regret getting your PhD at all? Like knowing what you know now, do you wish you took a different path or what?
Never,
Okay.
never. I never regret that because, I am in my heart, I'm a scientist. I like to learn.
Hmm.
If I had a choice, I'd spend my life learning and studying and maybe, doing some research. That's what I would do. I mean, in a sense, I still do that. I research investments, I research different strategies and put them together. So that's the joy of this work. But I never regret, if you get a worthwhile education,
Hmm.
I don't think that anybody should regret it. I love physics. You can see all the books on my shelves there. And that's just one of the 3. There are 2 more
Hmm.
shelves on the other side.
Okay. Nice.
Um, I love that. I just love learning. I love studying. I love learning about the world. And it's a great joy that I can apply that training and that understanding to another discipline that actually needed more of understanding. So um, I never regret
Very nice.
at
And
any
then, so
time
maybe if I could just recap,
getting
or
a
can you
PhD.
highlight if a young person is listening to this, should they need, if they want to become a portfolio manager, is there a more traditional path? Is it just majoring in finance? I know you, obviously you did your PhD in law schooling.
Yes. Yeah, the traditional path is you major either in finance or some sort of a harder science because there's lots of things that are becoming mathematical,
Hmm.
and then you go into the bank and start learning the craft.
Hmm.
Many people just go back and do an MBA, which is fine, but for those who are specifically looking for portfolio management and investment management,
Hmm.
I personally think that CFA charter is better. So this is a Chartered Financial Analyst designation that's offered by the CFA Institute. I did that. I got it in 2003. I finished the exam. It's a very comprehensive field of study. And I think that is probably the path. You finish your college, you go and start working, and then perhaps while you're working, you can actually take the CFA. MBA usually would require you to get out and go to business school. That's also a viable path because let's be honest, MBAs are the ones who run the businesses. If you are in a big organization, a big bank, you are an MBA when you get up to the upper management level. So if that's where your life is taking, that's where you want to be taken, then MBA would be a way to go. But you don't need a PhD to be a portfolio manager. The only exception to that, if you want to work in quantitative hedge funds, that's where you need a PhD, and in that case, PhD in math, in physics, hard sciences, engineering. That's what's needed.
Yeah, quantitative hedge funds. I don't know. That's above my head, but I'm sure it's interesting.
So quantitative hedge funds would be funds who exploit the market dislocations, looking into the data of the different securities and looking into statistical properties, trying to find out viable signals on which to trade.
Easier said than done, right?
Yes, it is much easier. As I said, it's that one is far harder than it looks. And you have an example for that is Renaissance Technologies out on Long Island. For some people who heard, Jim Simons is the founder and owner of that. And just to give you the idea, Jim Simons is the Simons in Chern-Simons invariance, which is a methodology in math. So he invented that, and also started a hedge fund. Now, Renaissance Technologies, their major fund has been up, I think, 27% on average for the last 30 something years after all fees, and their fees are 6 and 44, which means 6% of assets annually and 44% of all earnings. After those fees, they're up 27%. So they also that fund has also been
closed. Can you
for
clarify,
like
in order to
2.5
invest
decades,
in a hedge fund, isn't that typically reserved for high net worth individuals? Is there a typical minimum?
Yes, it's reserved for accredited investors or qualified purchasers. So you either have to have a liquid net worth of over $1 million, or you have to have a career that pays you over $300,000. So it is reserved because many of these strategies you have to to lock up your money for several years. It's not easy to extract, and there is a serious possibility of losing a lot of money. So if you do not put all your money in something like that, you have to be qualified. A lot of endowments and foundations they do purchase those.
Okay, no, that's interesting.
They are
Hedge
endowments
funds,
and foundations.
Complicated, but fascinating.
But here is the thing: we do help people with it. There is something called liquid alts. There are strategies out there that replicate beta of hedge funds. Not all of the returns, but the major, I would say, beta, which is their market. Whatever is a market adjusted return for the particular anomaly they're exploiting. So there are out there the ways to replicate those funds and invest in them in terms of ETFs, of mutual funds, and those can be used to diversify our portfolio. We actually use one of them that's known as managed futures. Used to be available for only high net worth investors, but it's possible to use it now in terms of an ETF, and we use that in our strategies, which helps. The results from last year it's helped
Yeah, so it's more of
because of
a
one of those
fringe
strategies like
strategy,
that.
right? That's not a core of what someone should be focusing on, but it's an option. Not fringe.
No, it's not a
Diversifying.
fringe. I
Okay.
would not say fringe. It is a diversifying strategy. That I don't like to use the word fringe for something like that, because fringe would imply something very much on the margin and not usual. This is something that's it's diversified. So you see, basically, it's something to add to the portfolio so that when things go
Okay.
down, it actually
No,
helps for it to go up.
yeah, that helps. It's again in line with hedging, perhaps, or it's like a diversification strategy.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is.
Okay.
It is. It
So
is.
maybe as
It's
we
both
kind
of
of
those. Yes.
transition to a close here, I want to ask you one more question. Seeing as you're an entrepreneur now, what are now that you've
Sure.
been at Honey Badger for a while and starting it and creating it into a successful company, what are the three top things it took? And maybe just in general for a founder or anyone that wants to start their business in terms of top three qualities that it takes to be successful.
I'd say you need to
Mm-hmm.
have some money saved or secure funding. You need to make sure that that
Mm-hmm.
you're really well set up for sales. I wasn't. I needed to discover how to do that. Um, and better make sure you
Mm-hmm.
have an understanding spouse and supporting family, because it's going to take a lot of hours, and you'll be away from them. And
Yeah.
my daughter comes here and wants to play while I'm having a meeting, and that sort of thing. So she has barred on a couple of customer meetings um, from time to time. But those are the three things I have. Make sure you have the right partner in your life, and that your family is understanding. Make sure you have some funding, and that you understand exactly how
No,
you're going
I
to
think that's really
bring this to the
prudent
market,
advice. And I
how
think
you're going to sell it.
you're bringing in items like your family, like things outside of the company can really affect you, right? That you may not think of. So I love it. Um, yeah, yeah, your decisions. So,
It's going to affect the
hey, well, I
family
wish
as
you the
well.
best of luck. I certainly learned a lot this morning. But I will let
Thank
you
you.
close out. Where can people find out more about you or any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm happy to have a conversations, and you can find me on LinkedIn. You can look me up. You can also look at our website, which is www.hbria.com. Honey
Mm-hmm.
Badger, Honey Badger Registered Investment Advisory. There are links there that you can send a message to, and we'll be
Awesome. Yeah,
go straight to
100%.
me, and then we'll figure it out from there.